Welcome to Share A Pint, where we tap into the craft beer scene. I'm Jerry Hulla, your host.
Today I'm talking with Kendrick Doolan from Maryland Craft Beer. Thanks for being on the show, Kendrick.
Thank you. Always great to be here.
So for people in our audience who are unfamiliar with the website, talk a little bit about how it got started and then what types of resources are available at marylandcraftbeer.net.
Sure. So I started this website as a result of my time out in California and Germany. Before that, I got into beer while living abroad, and then got into craft beer when I came back to the States. And then when I moved back home to Maryland, I started looking around to find my local breweries. This was in 2012. And so I needed a place to store all my data, and I made a custom Google map, put all my little pins down, color-coded everything nicely so I could find out if they serve food and what if they were food trucks or a restaurant, or if they didn't have anything at all, because you got to plan your stops if you're doing multiple breweries in a day. You know, I get disappointed if I can't get lunch somewhere where I thought I could.
Absolutely.
And so that's where it all kind of started. And every few weekends or so, me and a buddy or two would go out to a brewery or two and just see what was around the state. Because even though I was from here, I wasn't really into beer before I'd left, so I didn't know what the landscape was like back then. And so over the years, more and more people asked for this information. So more and more people got added to this Google map, and after it hit, 70 or 80 different people on it, I said, okay, you know what? It kind of just needs to be a website. I'm not a coder. I don't do websites. It's all WordPress. I had somebody do all the mock-ups for me and create the structure, and then I just have played with it from there. So I have full information on every brewery, as far as I can tell, full and accurate information. I've got physical address, phone numbers, email addresses, full social media, including Untapped, opening hours, whether or not you can bring your dog, whether they have outdoor seating or not, if they have Wi-Fi, cans and growlers to go, all the sorts of information. And so it can be a little bit of a chore to maintain that information, because things happen all the time. Now on Saturdays we're open till 10 instead of 9, and I've got to somehow catch that on Facebook. So it's a lot of manual labor that goes into it. Every 4 weeks or so, I'll sit down on a Saturday morning after breakfast and just crank for an hour and a half, going through Facebook, everyone's Facebook profile, and then comparing it to what I have recorded. Also necessitates phone calls or emails to breweries to clarify either conflicting information, because sometimes the website will say one thing, but Facebook will say something else.
Right.
And it's like, well, okay, I don't know. Fix whatever's wrong and tell me which one's right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. I was kind of curious, how you were maintaining that. So it sounds like there's a lot of different sources that you got to kind of run down.
Yeah, it's made it difficult, and Facebook has gotten a little wonky in COVID times as well, because it'll list times when a place is open for carryout or when they do delivery times, but maybe the tap room is not open during that time. So I have to be extra careful when I'm scraping my COVID data that I'm not accidentally listing someone as open for the tap room on a day when they're just doing carryout or delivery.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was going to say, I was thinking the COVID situation was going to make things even more difficult, because like you said, things are changing on the fly a lot more under those circumstances than, under normal circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, county by county, some are allowing indoor seating, and then you had Baltimore City that rolled it back about a month and a half ago or so, and then they re-allowed it, and so I'm having to kind of pivot with those as they come. It's been a wild ride.
And people should know that, you're doing this on the side. It's not like this is your job or the website's bringing anything in for you. It's because you have a love of craft beer. And so, to find time out of your normal day and your business day to make these types of changes with the amount of breweries that are in Maryland, that's a pretty good task.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on top of it, trying to keep on top of, the new folks opening up. We've had a few open up even during COVID, which is crazy to me. I'm thrilled, but at the same time, I'm like, man, that's got to be a rough time to open a business.
Absolutely.
So, but yeah, trying to keep on top of guys like Pipe the Side or Locust Post. Some of these that are getting really close to opening firm. Burnish, like they're starting to get towards that opening day, and it's like, okay, I need to stay on top of this and make sure that I didn't miss them, that they opened up, and I didn't see it and add them onto my spreadsheet of opening hours and whatnot.
Well, I mean, it's clear, I know you, but for audience that doesn't, even listening to you, they can tell that, you're passionate about craft beer. And if they look at your social media stuff, you can tell, you're always out there, pushing Maryland breweries and what's going on. And so tell me a little bit about what types of things you try to do to help promote Maryland breweries.
So I try, pre-COVID, I was a little bit more expansive in my operation and what I would cover. I was trying to cover all can and bottle releases in the state. That with the advent of COVID and all the data that I had to start keeping track of with that, I had to tap out on that one and say I don't have the bandwidth to spend another few hours a week trying to stay on top of Black Flag or Burley or RAR doing their drops, and now more and more people are canning as well. People like Brewery Fire picked up a canning line, or Checker Spot, so they've been expanding their operations, and so now I've got even more people that once I get back to having that bandwidth, it'll be a chore. But yeah, so that was something that I had covered that I no longer do. But mostly, I view my role as a cheerleader for Maryland beer. I do not I don't talk smack about breweries in public. I don't talk about a beer badly in public. I will not talk about negative experiences on my page in any way. I don't view my role as the role of a reviewer. We have enough of those out there, and they do their jobs well. And I just want to champion my state. And then occasionally when I go somewhere else, show a picture or two from that too. But mostly I'm about, we make great beer here, especially compared to 8 years ago when I started drinking Maryland beer. It's amazing how far we've come. And I want to see more people realizing that they don't need to go to Treehouse or Trillium or Hill Farmstead or The Answer or wherever. Make great beer there. Don't get me wrong. It's wonderful beer, but we're making some really great stuff here at home. And I want to help people find their local breweries, and some of the smaller places like Brewery Fire or Checker Spot, they're starting to get their names out there a bit, but they're still more neighborhood brewery-like, and people who live close by still may never have heard of them before. And so that's where I view my role is to help you find your neighborhood brewery, and then you go there yourself and you decide for yourself if it's your cup of beer or not.
Right. No, that's good. And like you said, there's a lot of different ways to get the information out there, and having a place like your site where we can go to one spot and you can find out all the information that you're talking about. Are they going to have food trucks or not? Are they kid friendly, dog friendly? All that kind of stuff. Those are little things that matter for people when they're trying to, like you said, plan out their stops, or even plan out their day of hitting a couple breweries under better circumstances. It's great that you care enough to be able to do that. So recently, you and your wife road tripped to the Midwest. So talk about the states that you visited. Tell us a little bit what the COVID restrictions were there, and then kind of maybe highlight some of those breweries that you checked out.
Sure. Well, if you don't mind, I'll actually crack a beer here real quick first, which is
a Maryland beer.
It is. I found this one actually. Was trying to grab a beer out of the back of the fridge, and then wound up finding there was one further back in the fridge that I didn't realize was still there. This is Countercoup from Old Mother.
Oh, okay. Well, then I will work this little Crooked Crab collab with Wham Bam. Since you did mention a little bit earlier with Firm, and
yeah, and that was their. I want to say that was also their salute to the Maryland Brewers Association.
Right. Well. Yep. Brew for Bam. We talked with Jim at the Brewers Association a few episodes back, and that was the conversation. The conversation was, people trying to find ways to help them since they had lost their major source of revenue with the two beer festivals that they run. So we touched on Brew for Bam a little bit, and then I've been trying to follow, and a number of our past guests have been involved. Going to do a little bit of we're talking Maryland beer, so we're drinking Maryland beer, and we're kind of take advantage of this really nice Crooked Crab Maryland style glass.
That's a sick glass. I like that.
To go with my Crooked Crab collab for BAM. So we go shout out to BAM and to Crooked Crab and all, and then your Old Mother. Nice.
Yep, in a old Hysteria glass.
Nice.
That's not getting picked up at all because of this lighting situation, but it's there, I promise.
Absolutely. So now we're drinking some good Maryland craft beer, and you're going to tell us about other places that aren't
Yeah.
Maryland.
That's right. Because I didn't know this until I went out of the state, but other places actually make beer too.
Wow.
So we went down. We passed through Roanoke, Virginia. That was just a stopping point, just an overnight, and then we went on to family of mine in Nashville, and so we spent 2 days there. Was able to visit the tap room of one of the two spots that I really wanted to go to, namely Bearded Iris. They're one of the more known breweries out of that area. Wanted to hit Southern Grist as well, although we didn't have time. Unfortunately, both of those breweries, they are completely shut down, even for outdoor seating.
Oh.
Now, it is voluntary, I believe, in the state to have outdoor seating, but they have chosen not to. They've chosen a more heavy seas approach where they've said no tap room at all, just to go sales.
Mm-hmm.
So we got some of that, but we did manage to hit up a new spot called Living Waters. And I think the reason they were allowed to be open inside is because they were also a coffee shop. I've never seen that combo before, a brewery and a coffee shop in one. And so they had a fun, their game was mostly New England's, and they did some Belgians, but stouts, heavier stouts. So two of my love languages, although I drink just about everything. My wife had hoped for some sours, but they had apparently just kicked the last one like the day before. So so she jammed with the Belgian quad for a little bit instead. They had a really nice beer culture. I really liked how open and inclusive they were, that people just showing up, and they seemed like they really knew each other and cared about their customers. Always happy to see that in a tap room.
Absolutely.
So that was Nashville. Then we went on the next day, or 2 days later, we drove out to Little Rock, Arkansas. And there's not much there.
I know. I used to live in Conway, which is about 35 to 40 minutes north of there. And you want to talk about nothing there other than somehow sustaining two college campuses, Division II, University of Central Arkansas, and then Division III, Hendrick College. So as tiny as they were, they've still have two colleges. But I understand, not a lot with craft beer.
Not much, no. Although I will say we went to two, and the one that stuck out to us was a place called Lost 40. They were fun. I found them kind of by accident. I'm not a huge Untapped guy, but when I'm going somewhere where I don't know and I have no recommendations, I have to go off of something to try to prioritize my stops. And this place was near the top of the rating, although it wasn't. It still was maybe a 3.7 or so on Untapped, where it's like, okay, it's probably okay, but nothing amazing. These guys actually kind of surprised me. They were better than I had expected, and they were better than their ratings deserved. And I'll tell you my theory as to why I think it is.
Okay.
They were brewing a lot with Brettanomyces.
Yes.
And which makes for some wonderfully complex beers.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have a very educated drinker, it can come off as weird, unusual, and I don't know what this is in my beer, why I'm smelling funk and tasting it.
Earthiness, barnyard, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I could see that as having negatively impacted their ratings because they're just too progressive and too ahead of their time for geographically where they are. But I would actually, I may not, put Little Rock way up there on my list of spots I must go back to, but I wouldn't mind trying some of their stuff again. That was a surprising high note. So we spent a day there and then trekked on out to Oklahoma City. So went really far out there. That's the westernmost point on the trip, and spent a day there. We did Prairie Artisanal, which was definitely a worth
that's
the
worth
stop.
that's worth the stop for sure.
They were amazing. So we did them, and we did Cloudwater, which was also really nice. Picked up a few other breweries, stuff from out there as well, but those were the two breweries that we hit. And Oklahoma has I would say there's a much more developed craft beer scene out there than I had expected. I knew some of the names, American Solera, Prairie, there are some big names in that state, but I don't associate the Midwest with beer too much. I think of, West Coast and East Coast, Northern East Coast as being the kind of the two big craft beer hubs. Right. So it was a bit surprising in a very pleasant way to come across so much great beer right in the center of the country. And what I would have thought of as kind of a nowhereville, although Oklahoma City turned out to be a bit more happening than I'd thought it was.
Yeah, that's been built up in my past life of coaching and athletics. Our volleyball convention was there a couple of times, and they'd really built that downtown area into some stuff that was worth going to. So it's nice to know that they're kind of catching up to speed with maybe some of the craft beer world.
Yeah. Their COVID, they were allowing people indoors, and I was pleasantly surprised with the level of masking I saw there. Didn't see a whole lot of masking in Arkansas, but Oklahoma was pretty well masked up.
Okay.
So but they had indoor seating as well. So from there, we headed up north to Kansas City, and we did one brewery on the Kansas side of Kansas City, and then popped over into it's Missouri, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
My Midwest geography is not so.
And you were
hot.
just there.
I know, right? I should know this. So we got there on a Monday, which is the worst day of the week
for breweries. Yeah.
for breweries. I mean, nobody's open, and
No.
I mean, I know that. I know that from my site and my time in beer, but that's just how the cookie crumbled on the trip. And so, okay, this is the day that we're here. So we didn't get to go to a lot of the ones that we'd wanted to, that people had told us about, but we did get to stop at Boulevard.
Uh-huh.
And I've drunk Boulevard for a good while. I would not classify them as, some sort of a like heaven. Like their run-of-the-mill core beers are solid. They're great beers.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing earth-shattering about them.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that their tap room experience is really, really great.
See, that's what I'd heard. I'd heard some people say that they have a really nice tap room.
Yeah, 2 floors, outdoor patio on the top floor. You can look out and see the production facility from there. And it was just the perfect night. I want to say it was like low 70s, and the sun was setting, and we were just sitting on this patio, just enjoying a bunch of great beers. It was only a mile from our hotel, so
Awesome.
We were able to unwind there a little bit after a long haul in the car.
Mm-hmm.
But Boulevard was great. I would absolutely recommend a stop there. I've heard great things about a lot of other Kansas City breweries that I unfortunately didn't get a chance to pick up anything from or try. So that would definitely be one. I regret that. I really want to go back to that area and check out what was going on there. But Boulevard, solid. So from there was Dayton, Ohio, and we had a amazing experience. We went to Alematic. It was the name of it. They're a newer brewery, black-owned brewery, and they were just incredible people, super friendly, and we wished we could have spent more time there. It was going to be a long haul the next day, so we couldn't stay too late. But no, they were really great people. And I would absolutely love to go back to Dayton to check out their scene more, because I'd heard some good things about other breweries there too.
A nice little college town there with the Dayton Flyers, but yeah, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, so because one thing that my wife and I did on this trip, we brought a 4-pack of Maryland beer. We made a mixed pack.
Yeah, I saw it on your social media, so you were like, Santa Clausing your way across your trip.
Exactly, right. We just pass them out like candy. So I brought Elder Pines Black is Beautiful for the stout. I brought True Respite's Grisette. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Grisette Vin Blanc. That was my wild card. Just something different. I wanted to make sure I had 4 varietals from 4 different places. Idiom's Phrase 9 for the New England selection. And then my 4th was Mako Reactor from Black Flag, which was a strawberry and banana sour. So nice. I tried to mix up styles, mix up geography, and no brewery had double dipping representation.
I thought it was a cool idea that you were taking, these different styles of beers, and like the way you outlined how you mixed them up to give people different samplings of styles and the breweries themselves. I mean, I saw on social media where you'd thrown out, hey, if you're going to be out that way and you want to connect with us, we'll trade some beers with you. And I thought that was really cool to add to your trip.
Yep.
What would you say then would be maybe from this trip? What would be some of your biggest takeaways that were positive, as far as whether it might be the breweries or the way they were set up or run, or even the guidelines of how they did things with COVID? I mean, when you come back from a trip like that and you look back on your pictures and things, what is it that you look back fondly on?
So I loved how most breweries, the service went beyond just, okay, what'll it be? You know, I would try to usually lead with, you know, I'm from out of town, and a lot of times I was engaged on that. They would ask me where I was from, and they'd want to genuinely know what I thought of their beer, and that always is a great sign to me that a place takes themselves and their product seriously when you solicit feedback in a genuine way. You don't come at it from here's this great beer that we make, which, you know, that's a fine opener, but then to not be open to someone saying, well, you know, I think X, Y, and Z about this. Maybe this is something you want to think about tweaking or changing. And I'm not a brewer. I'll always put that out up front. I only know what I'm smelling and what I'm tasting. That's all I can say. And sometimes it means I'm off, and sometimes it means something needs to be changed. So I liked how open the folks out there in general tended to be, and how friendly they were. And I mean, I don't know you get that everywhere, but I did feel in some ways like that they were more open than I typically see. So.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, that, and I talked about that one Arkansas brewery. I really liked to see that Brettanomyces, because that's something you don't get a lot of here anymore in Maryland. Some people still play with it on occasion, but it's not something you see too much every day.
I recently got together with a friend of mine, and Joe and I were at Sapwood, and you know, we had their Brentwood Road, but we also had besides the Brentwood Road, he had brought one. I had also brought from Ben at Denison's. He had got me the Papagayo, because the Papagayo was the first beer that I'd ever had from Denison's. I had it last year's Maryland Craft Beer Festival, so kind of has a special place in my heart. It's where I met Ben, and Ben was really positive about this idea of share a pint before it was much more than an idea. So based on having that beer, having that conversation with him, having him be so enthusiastic, you know, a couple weeks later, we're putting out episodes, and we were born. So that's always going to be a little special for me. But we had like 3 Brett beers in a row, and that share. And I kind of looked at Joe and I was like, we love Brett, but it's hard to find that guy. And to have 3 in a row is pretty awesome.
You know, back when I thought I would also be a blogger, I enjoy the concept of writing blog posts, but I don't ever get around to it. It's a constant problem of mine. But I always wanted to write an article entitled "Who is Brett and Why Does Everybody Know Him?" or something to that effect. Because you would, you know, 4 years ago or so, 3 years ago, you'd see that a lot, you know, brewed with Brett. And, you know, what does that mean?
Yeah, people are like, who is that guy? And he gets around a lot of places.
Yeah, seriously.
You know? Yeah. Even Untapped had a little bit of fun with it, with their badge for that, because it's got a little name tag. Hello, my name is Brett. You know, so yeah.
But yeah, no, they had beers that kind of crossed into other styles than you would typically find with Brett. They had a lager, a Brett lager, and they had a barrel-aged stout with Brett.
Wow.
Which really mellowed the barrel a lot. And was just surprising, like shocking. I actually brought a bottle of that one back with me, both of those, because I was like, I need to bring this back home to Maryland and take it to some brewers and be like, hey, you know, check this out, you know.
Yeah.
So that's something that I don't get out of the state much, but I like seeing what's going on in other places, and then trying to see where are some areas of experimentation that I'm seeing out of state that we haven't really picked up on yet back home, and what are some things that we can maybe be thinking about. So I like to take pictures and bug people like Ty at Hysteria or Brendan at True Respite and be like, hey, you know, what do you think about this? So it's a lot of fun to do that.
That's pretty cool. Well, remind people where they can find you online: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, website.
Facebook, Twitter, and Insta, MD Craft Beer. And the website, mdcraftbeer.net.
Well, that's cool. As Marketer's Droid Theory says, when you're doing it, the recommendation, keep it the same across all platforms, which easier said than done, but Glad that it worked out for you guys.
Yep.
We'll make sure we put that up on our website at sharepodcast.com. Well, Kendrick, tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into craft beer. We touched on briefly, you had mentioned, Germany and California. So you've been to some places. Talk about that and your journey in craft beer.
Sure. So I got into beer. It was truthfully, it was right before I moved to Germany. I discovered Sam Adams Oktoberfest.
Okay.
That was the first beer I remember drinking where I said, hey, this is actually something that I want to take more than 2 sips of. And then, ironically enough, I moved to Germany from right after having had that in October of 2008. And I moved to Berlin for 2 years, worked as a translator and interpreter over there. And so I got to have, the traditional German styles. Back then, craft beer was not a thing in Germany. It did not exist as we know it today. So it was all these breweries that were, at least 300 years old that had perfected their recipes over the generations. And so getting to try these crisper, cleaner beers that had, very defined flavor, but with very little bitterness in some cases, depending upon the style you're drinking. The Hefeweizen with more of that banana and clove character going on.
Mm-hmm.
Berliner Weisse is from Berlin, so I could get that too. Before sours were popular in America, it took years for that to come over. And so that kind of tickled my interest. And then I went to grad school in Escondido, California, and I was living 10 minutes from Stone. And this was 2010 when I moved there, and I was there for 2 years. And I still remember I was at a party my first week or so there, and somebody put a Sierra Nevada Pale Ale in my hand. That was my first craft hoppy beer that I'd ever had, and I still remember just my first sip of it, my face just screwing up, and what is this overload of bitterness that you just put in my hand? Like, why did you drink this for fun? Really? So it took me, a month or two to retool my palate from that classic German crisp and clean.
Right.
And, West Coast IPAs, they're still clean in the sense of the appearance as opposed to the hazies that you get these days. But that earthiness, the dankness, the bitterness that comes with them is absolutely not present in German beer to that extreme. And so after having had a few Arrogant Bastards and a few Sierra Nevada Pales, it became okay, the search for more hops when the IBU wars were happening and everything.
Yeah, I mean, when you said that, it made me laugh because we talked to Zach at 1623 not long ago,
Mm-hmm.
and he's been brewing in Colorado for 10 years, but he's a classically trained style guy, and he's got medals from GAB Fest and other places for Hefeweizens and Pilsners and your classic clean styles like you're talking about from Germany. But he talked about
those, by the way.
He does. He really does. I told people, I said, you want the classic styles, it's a great place to go. But he said back when he got into it, he said it was almost like a contest to see how high of a bitterness you could make it. And he's like, almost to where it, like you get hop burn and it's painful. And he's like, I don't know what we were thinking. He's like, drinking beer should never be painful. He goes, but back then, that's what it was. So it's funny to hear that because a lot of people say that Sierra Nevada is, their gateway craft beer. I mean, that's on a short list. You hear that. You hear Blue Moon, so yeah. Yeah.
So I actually had two friends who worked at Stone, and they had one of the best marketing schemes, I guess, out there for trying to get people to drink their beer more. They would give you, and this was at least back at the time, they would give you a growler fill as an employee, one growler fill per shift for anywhere from $3 to $5, depending upon the beer, for a 64-ounce fill.
Jeez. This was Stone?
This was Stone.
Oh,
and they even said to their employees, if you don't want to use your fill for your shift, please give it to a friend. We don't mind.
That's so cool.
I would go in regularly and fill me up with an Old Guardian barley wine for $5, 64 ounces of barley wine for $5. I mean, it was just obnoxious. But as a grad student, also, it's like, hey,
that's cost effective for you, absolutely.
Exactly.
Oh my! But barley wine,
yeah,
that's not my cup of tea. But okay.
Yeah, or $3 Arrogant Bastard.
Well, you're getting an even better deal. I mean, for a barley wine, if you're paying $5 for 64, I mean, whoo.
Yeah, yeah. So those were, and I understand that breweries over here who are not brewing at the scale that Stone brews at, that
Right.
they can't get away with that kind of a discount. But
No.
it was great marketing for them because I would take the growler with me to parties, and it's like, hey, we're drinking Stone,
Yep.
and so it got their name out there even more. So it
Smart
was a great
marketing.
concept. But yeah, so that's kind of what got me into craft beer. And then 2012, I finished my program, moved back out home to the Annapolis area, and started looking around for the good stuff here.
And you've been the ambassador that you are ever since. We'll say the champion of craft beer for Maryland for sure.
To some way, shape, or form, yes. Yep.
That's what I love is that you're out everywhere. And this kind of leads nicely into my next point in question. You seem to know a lot about future breweries. You touched on a few at the beginning of the episode, so we're going to expand on that a little bit. But you attend soft openings, and so just talk a little bit about how you developed your network and your connections in the craft beer for Maryland that allow you to kind of be so in the know.
I mean, it definitely took a lot of time and buying a lot of beer. But it's honestly, it's a variety of different resources that I use. One is absolutely I use BAM's website. Those guys, I love them all to death. They're great people, and I really can't wait until their festivals come back around because they are some of my favorite things in Maryland beer.
Absolutely.
And I've known Kevin now for probably 4 or 5 years that I've been hanging with those guys, and so their website has been a great resource for here are future members of BAM. But then you always have the issue of not everybody joins BAM, or at least not everybody joins BAM early in their development. So sometimes you still find people randomly who are not attached to them yet. And so usually Facebook, and I'll when I'm doing my opening hours searchings, I'll look at the people also like page, or you might like listings. And I'll anytime I see a brewery name I don't know, I mouse over it and make sure that it's not PA or Virginia, because usually that's what it is. But every now and again I find one that's a Maryland. Oh, here we go. All right, let's make a note of this one. And I try to be somewhat selective in what I list on my page, in that some of these breweries, they're still very much in what I refer to as the pipe dream phase. Wouldn't it be great if it's like, okay, that's great. I want to encourage you. I want to support you guys, but I'm not going to put in a whole lot of legwork and effort into making a new listing for you all if you haven't really moved the ball very far yet. And so usually my line in the sand that I've sometimes been willing to cross is when you have a property, when you have a deal with a real estate guy, then I'll list you on my site. And so I usually try to be, I've not always done a great job of it, but I usually try to be in communication with these up and coming guys a year or 2 years before they even open. And that's usually, it's my asking questions of them. It's my checking up on their progress and whatnot. That's what usually elicits sometimes, and I'd never ask for it, an invitation to a soft opening or that kind of thing. So yeah, that's usually how it comes about. So
I mean, that's great. So again, you teased it a little bit earlier, but can you share with us any new breweries that are opening soon?
let's see if I can do this from memory and not leave anybody out. So apologies, because I will, I'm sure. So we've got Firm, which I'm really looking forward to because I live in Millersville, and these guys are going to be competing for closest brewery to my house distance-wise.
Nice.
So always happy when a new brewery comes to my neck of the woods.
Right.
So they're breaking ground right now. I want to say they're laying drains. That was the last update I saw from them.
Okay.
Pipe the Side up in Hampstead. They've done
Which
a
is
lot
around
of
the
work.
corner from me. So if you didn't mention that one, I was going to bail you out because they then, like you just said, become my closest, literally right around the corner place. So, okay.
Nice. And I like what I'll segue here briefly. I like what they do on social media in that they put out a weekly update on their construction. That is so critical, and I wish that more breweries and planning would do it, is let us know where you are. I don't care if all that happened was you got a permit in the mail but you couldn't touch anything, or that all you did was like wire up an outlet in the corner. Like you did something,
Yeah.
that tells me, that communicates to me as a future customer, you are making progress, things are moving forward, we're still coming.
Right.
This is not stalled. So I like
Right.
what they've been doing with their social media in their weekly updates. So that's
Pipe aside.
aside. And
Yeah,
Amp
don't
said,
give Tim and Carol a little shout out.
yep. I can't wait to come up and see their spot, and they're spinning vinyl too, which I always love.
Nice.
And then way out, we've got Locust Post. They are, I don't remember the exact town, but they're way out in the Frostburg general vicinity,
Wow. Okay.
far out west.
Out there in Cushwa country.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Western Maryland, we've got to find some craft beer out here.
Oh man, I wish the Kushwa were closer. I tell them that every single time I
Yes.
stop by because
Well, I say
they're
the
so
same thing
amazing.
about Burley Oak on the other side. So we'll take the spectrums of
Fair.
Maryland and go your eastern western side. I wish Burley Oak and Cushwa were closer.
Understood. That's very fair. And then actually over on that side, we just had an opening a few weeks back of Tenike
Okay.
over in Queenstown.
Oh, I think I saw that on your social media. You took a picture. Tell me a little bit about them.
So they those ladies just opened up. Yeah, I want to say it was 3 to 4 weeks ago, and they're still looking for a head brewer actually. So they have a great spot. They built it all from scratch. So anytime you get a chance to go to build your own facility from nothing,
Right.
you know that you can really tailor it to your needs. And their tap room is spectacular. I love the oak, or I believe it is an oak. It's a live edge bar top that they have. It was taken from a tree that was at the camp that one of them grew up going to, and so it's a great looking spot, and I'm really looking forward to. We're going to be going there next week.
Awesome.
We're heading out to the ocean again, and so we'll be stopping there on our way in, and yeah, so they're going to be doing more stuff. They've got a great outdoors area too, and their property is a very large spot. They've talked about having the room to build a second facility at some point in the future. This is obviously going to be years down the road, but something that I threw out the idea of maybe an off-site souring facility or something, somewhere where they could have the wild yeast do its thing somewhere else and not worry about an infection happening. But yeah, they have lots of room. Really great spot, and right off the highway too.
Well,
So.
I'll throw one out there for you. Our next guest, we're going to talk with Chris and Carrie Keene that are opening Bailey Cask and Kettle. And
I've
so the
heard of
conversation,
them.
the conversation is going to be that it might be called Bagels and Beer now. We're going to look, but what they've done is they've done a little pivot from the place they were going to open in Urbana, and it'll still open in Urbana, but in the meantime, he's moved, and they're going to have a hop farm and a little bit of a farm brewery out in the Boonesboro area.
Okay.
So we'll get to find out in the next episode when we talk with the brothers a little bit about that. But it sounds like the shift is we're going to have the hop farm and the farm brewery go for a little bit and then finish the build out on the place that's going to be potentially bagels and beers, because that's what they'll kind of do. They're going to do bagels and quick lunches and meals and things like that during the day, and at night shifted beer. So I'm looking forward to talking to Chris and Carrie next about that.
Yeah, that's an interesting combo. I've not run across that one before. Bagels and beer. I like that.
Nice.
Actually, when you said farm brewery, that made me remember Big Trucks. They're a brewery out. I want to say it's in the Parkton area. Another farm brewery that is currently already a hop farm. They've been a hop farm for several years, and they're finishing up their tap room. So, yeah.
Cool. A lot of great new places opening up to expand our craft beer.
And Burnish. I can't believe I forgot them. Burnish out in Salisbury. That is that one I'm very interested by. That is Randy Mills' project, who is the former the founding head brewer of RAR. He left there about a year and a half ago, roughly speaking, to start his own facility. And so they're going to be opening a full beer garden with restaurant and brewery sometime in the next few months. So yeah, really looking forward to that one too.
Hey, well, Kendrick, remind people again where they can find you guys online.
Sure. You can find me at www.mdcraftbeer.net or at mdcraftbeer on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook.
Sounds good. Well, we'll put that on our show notes on our website. Well, Kendrick, I want to thank you for your time. I look forward to a day in the near future when you and I can share this pint together in person.
Looking forward to it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Share A Pint is released bi-weekly on Friday mornings and can be found at shareapintpodcast.com. Follow us on Twitter at share_pint. Show notes for this episode are available at shareapintpodcast.com. Music for the show, Groundwork, provided by Kevin MacLeod and can be found online at incompetech.com. Share A Pint is made possible by help from the Community Media Center of Carroll County. Associated with the craft beer industry and have an interesting story you'd like to share on a future episode? Let us know. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at shareapintpodcast.com or email us at jerry@shareapintpodcast.com. Until the next time we share a pint, I'm Jerry Hulla. Prost.